Start with Christian Mortensen.
What's going on, Coach? How you doing today?
Good. How you doing, Christian?
Doing pretty good. So heading into the Frisco Baseball Classic, what can you say about your pitching? Where are you at with that? Have you given it any thought who will be your starting pitchers in the first couple games?
Yeah, I mean, we'll start with Chase tomorrow. He went last Thursday. It's his turn to pitch. The plan is to kind of stay on the same schedule that we have. It's a unique deal where you're playing 3 teams in one weekend. I've spent the last 2 days paying attention and focusing on Oklahoma because they're our first opponent and we played them twice. But we'll kind of convene as a staff and figure out where we're going after Thursday. I would anticipate it remaining the same, but we haven't made a final decision on that. But Chase will pitch on Thursday for sure.
And you say you've been focused on Oklahoma recently, the last couple of days. What can you say about them as a team?
Yeah, talented team. A lot of good athletes on the position player side of it, relative to speed, power, good-looking physical players. They return a lot of guys from their team last year that was off to a good start. On the pitching side of it, good balance of left and right. Good velocity, hard breaking balls. So a lot of what we'll see down the road. So I think it'll be a really good test for us.
Thanks, Coach.
Next question, Michael Lev.
Jay, what protocols have been put into place for this road trip that are different from a road trip that you would have taken before the pandemic?
Yeah, there's a lot. There's been a lot more planning relative to it. We're going to take 2 buses from here to the Tucson airport, 2 buses from when we arrive to the hotel or field, and then we'll make 2 trips on game day and just split the team in half to eliminate spread and eliminate any potential contact tracing. We're wearing the N95 surgical masks on the plane and out and about in the hotel. We'll have all meals delivered to the hotel and individualized as far as that goes. And then I think you'll see a lot of things relative to the dugout, similar that you saw here in our first 2 home weekends, where the social distancing and the things that we're doing will remain in place. We certainly want to keep as many of our team on the field as we possibly can, and we've had a, knock on wood, a really good run here of no positives, and we want to keep it that way.
Are the players told to stay in their rooms when they're not at the ballpark?
Yeah, I mean, they'll be in the confines of the hotel, and it's a little bit tricky because you're having meals brought in, but you don't want to gather and have meals also, because that's one of the main ways that we've learned that the spread can happen. So it's kind of like, stay in your room, you got your roommate. The roommates have been kind of strategically designed and placed, and we're going to give it our best effort. I think our players should be commended to this point in terms of how they've handled this, and there's a reason we haven't had outbreaks and those sorts of things, and we'll just need to continue doing that, outside of Tucson here.
How many players are you bringing on the trip?
I think we're bringing 35 on this trip.
Is that going to be the same during Pac-12 play when you go?
No, in Pac-12, we're only allowed to bring 27 players.
27. Okay. All right. That makes sense. And how would you describe the way that your players have handled all of these challenges so far?
I've been very proud and very pleased, wherever we have told them to step it up or do better, they have. It's been very little drama, to be honest with you, since we've been back practicing as a team. We've made some big concessions relative to not using our locker room. That way, nobody's in there more than a 15-minute period, next to somebody else. And we've only basically used that as a restroom and access to the training room. They've kind of gotten accustomed to, showing up dressed and those types of things. They've handled that outstanding. We're spreading out on game days, putting some of the pitchers in the stands. I don't feel like that's, curtailed the energy that we like them to have in terms of enthusiasm for playing. And I think they've done a great job. It's just one of those things you never want to let your guard down though. It's like the previous game success doesn't have anything to do with the next one. And I kind of feel like COVID is the same way. You have to be very diligent in your efforts.
Next question, Matt Moreno.
Hey, Coach.
Hey, Matt.
So obviously this weekend is a little bit different than the first two that you've had. Is there anything specific you look for when you head into a situation like this where you're playing a few different teams over the course of a few days?
Well, the reason we were going to this tournament, and I feel like it's one of the best tournaments in the country, A, in terms of how it's run and put on, and B, it has an NCAA tournament feel to it. And that's something that I want our players to experience in terms of the quality of the teams, in terms of a neutral site venue. It's a great ballpark, and I know they're really looking forward to it. I think it's unique where we're playing 4-day games. We're the first game of the day, all 4 days, which I actually like that because it's going to allow us to take batting practice and be in a little bit more of a normal routine. Whereas if you're playing the night game, you don't get a chance to do that. And then really it's always going to come back to the play. We'll adjust some things today relative to, it's our first time going on the road, but a lot of these guys have been in our program for a few years. We had a couple of successful road trips last year where we won some close games against good opponents in the Tony Gwynn Classic and then at Texas. So I feel like some of these guys have been through it, and we'll rely on them to use their experience and maturity, because really what it all comes down to is just being ready to play and, making sure that we put ourselves in the best position to be ready to play when the game starts.
You mentioned you have a lot of players that have been on these trips. You have a lot of young guys that haven't. What's maybe the message to them about going on their first road trip and getting out of Tucson for the first time in a while?
Yeah, I think just being mature in the approach. I think honestly the protocols that we're in, there's very little drama, in terms of you're not going out with your families. There's not this or that. We're eating, we're taking BP, or we're playing the game, or they're doing homework after and they're eating again. It's going to be very militant in that regard. And so I think in a lot of ways it's going to mimic how it's been at home, because the socialization, fraternization, really tightening our circle, a lot of those things will be the same. Now, with that being said, there's a first time for everything. I think one good thing with some of the players that we have is a lot of them have played in some high level events and have gone on planes to fly across the country and play baseball. So I don't think it'll be their first rodeo in that regard. And then we'll really rely on the leadership, and I mentioned some of the roommate pairings to help some of those guys along with things.
Next question, Ari Kozlow.
Hey, Coach. With the fast starts that we've seen, or the team has seen from Silseth and Nichols in the rotation, and then Preston Price and Benelli in the bullpen, how would you say having those anchors both in the rotation and the bullpen kind of helps the overall pitching staff as a whole heading into this, road trip?
Yeah, I think it's been important. I think when you get a couple quality starts a weekend, like both those guys have provided us, and you have stable guys on the back end of the game, what it does is it allows you to be in every game that we play. And I think we have a very good team offensively. And if we're in every game that we play, we're always going to have that crack where that one inning, something goes our way, we get a catch a break, get a couple good at bats in a row, it puts you in position to win. And that's why the pitching staff is so important. I think the longer we go, the more we're going to have those pieces in order. I like the fact that we have these 4 games in a row set up. It's kind of forced us or pushed us to use some guys and see where some guys fit and maybe where some guys don't. And I think that's really going to benefit us going forward.
Next question, Christian Mortensen.
Coach, we're about to talk to Brandon in a little bit here. What can you say about his recent surge against Southeastern Louisiana? He had a pretty impressive series.
Yeah, had a great week. He's a great hitter. And I think I said this maybe on an interview yesterday. I mean, our pitchers and our players see it on a daily basis, because we've scrimmaged so much. I think if the last year, 2020, would have played out, it wouldn't be a surprise at all. I think he just has a natural ability to see the ball well. He has a natural ability and knack for getting the big part of the bat to the big part of the ball. I think he handles velocity really well. I think he's really balanced. I think he recognizes balls outside of the zone and doesn't get himself out, and just has a really mature approach to everything he does. And really a really quality hitter. And again, no surprise to us around here, and really, really excited every time he's coming up to the plate with men on base. I'll tell you that. So.
And was this kind of the player that you envisioned when you recruited him here in 2019?
Yeah, 100%. His story was a little unique. I first saw him play when he was 15 years old. He was a very good left-handed pitcher also, two-way player, and ended up having a couple injuries, had Tommy John surgery, had a broken ankle, and he originally had committed to USC. And I remember being heartbroken when he called me the first time and told me he was going to USC, and the situation changed with some of those injuries and decisions that were made there. And, as soon as he called me, I wanted to get back on track with him, and went out to Riverside to his home and got him here, and have certainly been very happy that all transpired that way.
And just one more, Chase Davis collected his first hit this weekend. Where do you kind of see him fitting in? I know he was a very high-level recruit coming into the season.
Yeah, I think he's improving on a daily basis. I think I've mentioned this before too. I think the most talented position on our team right now is the outfield, and Chase figures into that. He could only play 3 guys. There's different matchups in games, and where defense is maybe a little more critical than offense, or those types of things. I think he's got a chance to be a special player here. I see a great future for him here. I think if he continues to improve at the rate that he does, he's going to be a big part of what we're doing. I don't have like a timestamp on that, whether that's this weekend or later in the season or the postseason or, the beginning of next season. But I do know he's going to be a very good player at Arizona. I think he's a very good teammate that earned the respect of his teammates. And I think he saw that as he got his first hit the other night, how excited guys were about that. And I couldn't be more impressed with him as a person, and as the experience starts to match the ability, I think we'll have another really good left-hand hitter on our hands.
Thanks, Coach.
All questions for Coach. I'll go back to Michael Lev.
Your team has surged to the top or near the top of the Pac-12 in several offensive categories, which is kind of a customary position for you. Do you expect this offense to be as prolific as some of the ones you've had in recent years?
Hard to say. I think, in looking at this team, much like I just described with having the pitching lined up properly, I think we have enough really good hitters that present problems in terms of tough at bats, in terms of enough power, enough speed, enough execution, and baseball awareness to help us win any kind of game. And that's really what it's about, and what we want it to be centered around. I think you saw some of the potential this weekend. The thing I'm pleased with so far is I think we have seen some good pitching out of these 2 teams that we've played. And we've handled it pretty well for the most part. Had some bumps there in that first weekend in terms of guys getting outside themselves and trying to do too much. I think we utilized that experience very well and moved forward and transitioned it. Now that will continue to be the case where we're facing good competition, the entire season. There's not really what I would call a break in the schedule. I mean, I think a lot of these pitchers in college baseball use the quarantine well and develop more velocity, extra pitches. And I think maybe some of that development has exceeded some of the offensive type players just in general development. So we really have to be on top of our approach and on top of our commitment to take quality at bats and do the things that we do here to help our offense move and be successful. So I'm certainly excited about it. I certainly have a lot of belief in it. I think it can be one of those teams where you might get us, a time through the order, a time and a half through the order, but 27 outs is going to be a lot to collect against our team. And I think there's more than 9 guys that are, and will continue to contribute to that, which allows you to match up and do some things. And we saw some of that this weekend, which was really encouraging.
We don't talk about first base defense all that much, but it seems like Brandon has been an asset over there, especially with his ability to pick the ball. Has it helped him a lot to just focus on one position over the last year plus?
Yeah, we've actually, that's been something that I wanted to, let's just say improve, is kind of shrink the focus for a few guys. I mean, versatility is a great thing. But when you look at Brandon, I mean, he was a good outfielder. I mean, that's the position he played growing up. If we ever had to put him out there, we could certainly do that, but really specialized to where every rep or repetition was going to be as a first baseman. We did the same thing with Kobe Cotto. We've moved him around his whole time here. And it's like, just no, go to second base and take repetitions. And he's really improved as well. So I think it's a good, good reminder in simplifying the task for our players. It gives them the best chance to be successful. And Brandon at first base is certainly becoming a very, very good defensive first baseman as well.
Sure. And one last thing I wanted to ask you about, is this the same ballpark that you played in when you went there in 2017?
Yes. Yeah. Dr. Pepper Ballpark in Frisco. I believe it's AA for somebody. I'm not sure. The Rangers, maybe. I could have that wrong, but great venue. Those people do a great job running the tournament, and they've invited us to a ton of events, and this was kind of a year we had earmarked that we wanted to be back in this thing, and we're certainly excited to be a part of a really good field.
Is there an adjustment period at all for the team when you go to a new ballpark? And just about every ballpark you play in, other than your own, it's going to be smaller dimensions. Is that a shock to the system at all for the outfielders or the hitters or anyone?
I think it can be. I think it's just kind of how you process it. Regardless of the field that you play in, the fundamentals of the game don't change. If our pitchers throw strikes, if we manage the strike zone on offense and take quality at bats and play catch on defense, then we can be successful. I think we like to work out wherever we go the day or night before, which, if the field is in good enough condition, we'll do that tomorrow afternoon about the same time that we'll play the game on Thursday. So hopefully we get a chance to have that experience and just kind of get them settled with some of the nuances, shorter fence, there's less foul territory, those kinds of things. Dugouts maybe are a little bit closer to just try to get a visual and get comfortable. Don't always have the luxury of doing that. So you got to adapt if you can't, but we'll use it as part of our preparation if we're allowed to get on the field tomorrow.
All right, we do have time for one more for Coach. We'll go back to Ari Kozlow.
Coach, you've been using Quinn Flanagan more in long relief so far this season. Has that been more of a product of these 4-game series so far, or will that be something that we'll see continuing moving forward this season?
Well, the great thing about Quinn is he has successful experience in a lot of different places that we've placed him. He's started a good number of games here and been successful. 2 appearances that were really critical in 2019. He closed the game at Stanford, pitched a good 8th and 9th inning. They're number 2 team in the country and went 6 up and 6 down, I believe. Came out of the bullpen and threw 1 pitch and got us out of a mess at Washington State. And because he only threw 1 pitch, he was able to come back and start the next day. I have all the confidence in the world wherever we place him. Looking at the previous 2 days and then one of the games against Ball State, I just believe those last 9 outs are the most difficult to get in a college baseball game. And so I set up Saturday, being that we hadn't used him yet, he was going to be the pitcher that was in the game if we were tied or had the lead after the 7th inning, because he has great composure. He's throwing strikes, has great pitchability. And that was a very valuable win for our team on Saturday, being down 3-0, getting the lead, and then really having a lot of peace of mind with him on the mound. It's a long season. We're still working at fitting some of the pieces together, but you've seen it with guys like Bobby Dahlbeck, with Cameron Ming, guys that I have the most faith in. They start out kind of at the back end of the game, with that theory of the last 9 outs are the hardest to get. I think when you win close games, it does a lot in terms of building confidence for your team. We've seen that with some of the more successful teams that we've had here, and I want this year to be no different. So, he really stepped up in a time where we really needed him on Saturday.
Great. Thank you, Coach.
All right, guys. See you next time.
All right, questions for Quinn Flanagan, please raise your hand. We'll start with Ari Kozlow.
Quinn, you've been used in long relief out of the bullpen more so far this season. How Like in comparison to starting a game, how does your mindset change coming out of the bullpen?
I wouldn't say the mindset changes too much. I try to be as simple as possible when I'm up there. I think at the end of the day, if you make pitches and work ahead, you can get hitters out. And if you don't do that, you're going to struggle. I don't think that changes from starting or relieving much. I think that really the only main difference is just trying to get my body in shape to where I can, bounce back so I can pitch multiple games in a weekend.
Next question, Michael Lev.
Did Jay and Coach Yeski sit down with you at some point and say, hey, this is what we're thinking of doing with you, at least for the time being?
Yeah, that first weekend, I had an idea that, Garrett wasn't able to be extended that far. So I was going to come in relief behind him. And, that I had an idea that that's what I was going to do the following weekend. And then the day before, Coach Johnson came up to me and kind of explained that I was going to be used more in a end of the game, back innings type deal. So I was ready for that when it happened.
You've been a starting pitcher for the most part. How do you feel about this role if it ends up being what your job is for most of the season?
Yeah, I'm comfortable with it. It was nice having my first year. I had some relief appearances, so that was nice to have under the belt. And if it lets us take some pressure off P and Vince in the back end of the bullpen, then obviously that's what I'm ready to do.
Do you pitch any differently when you're coming out of the pen? Let's say like in that Saturday game, if you're going to pitch, 2 innings at the most. Are you throwing harder? Are you kind of going all out versus maybe pacing yourself a little bit if you're starting?
I wouldn't say necessarily. No, I wouldn't say that. It's more of, I can't be too out of control out there. I still have to make pitches. I can't, be giving up free bases or anything. It's just more of a mindset where I can, attack early on and kind of leave everything out there. So.
Sure. How would you compare that outing to your first one of the season?
I think the first outing was more just kind of me beating myself. I was falling behind in counts and a lot of free bases. So, that was definitely something I placed an emphasis on leading up to last weekend. And I think the result was much better.
Next question, Christian Mortensen.
How's it going? Coach Johnson just named Chase Silseth as Thursday's starter. You get to see Chase day in and day out in practice, and you obviously get to watch him in games as well. What do you think of him, and just what's your opinion on him as a pitcher?
Yeah, I think everyone saw it the first day he kind of stepped on campus here and was, practicing with us. He's got really good stuff, and I've been more impressed with the way he's kind of handled his business. He's a guy that works extremely hard, and it's something that I think a lot of guys look up to in him. And obviously I think that's a direct result in how good he has been. I think he's going to be a big part of this team moving forward.
Thank you.
Do we have any more questions for Quinn? Yes, Michael, go ahead.
What has been the messaging from the coaching staff and the discussion among the players about going on the road and making sure that you do all the right things to stay safe and not put yourself or your teammates at risk?
Sure. I think Coach Johnson kind of covered that, but we're not to really leave the hotel. We're kind of confined in that space, which is, I think as a team, we're totally fine with. We're there to play baseball, and at the end of the day, that's what we're there to do. So we're gonna do whatever it takes to stay on that field, and whatever that means, and that's what we'll do.
What's your kind of day-to-day life like these days? Is it pretty much like you're either at the ballpark or you're at your apartment?
Pretty much, yeah. It's kind of bouncing around from campus to work out, back home for class, school baseball at the field, and back home, which it took some getting used to, but that's the routine now, and that's that's what we've been doing.
Sure. I'm sure you've faced Brandon Bossier in practice many times. What makes him so difficult to get out?
Yeah, it's definitely nice not having to face him every single day anymore, and I think he's just a very mature hitter, and I think talent-wise, he's very talented. I think he kind of thinks along with you as a pitcher. there's not a whole lot that's going to fool him. He's going to get a good swing off on a lot of pitches. So.
Next question, Matt Moreno.
I know winning obviously helps a lot, but what's the general feeling of the pitching staff coming off of this last weekend sweep after splitting the first series, and what kind of confidence boost did that maybe provide for you guys?
I think that was really good for us just to be able to, close out some close games. It's something that, we've struggled with these past couple of years. And I think just with the talent level that we have on the staff, that's something that, we can't necessarily let happen this year. And I think this is a good start for us moving forward.
Obviously, you're going to be playing a few different teams this weekend. That changes from the first two series. How much does that maybe change the approach for you guys on the mound, especially maybe the relievers when you kind of go into a series or going into a weekend knowing you're going to play some different teams?
Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, it's really about us. We don't really look too much into who we're playing. If we make our pitches and work ahead, limit free bases, that's kind of the recipe for success for us. So I think as long as we just focus on that, we'll be in a good situation.
All right. Thank you, Quinn.
Thanks, guys.
Questions for Brandon Bossier, please raise your hand. Michael, go ahead.
Hey there, Brandon. You started the season 0 for 6. You're 14 for 23. Since then, what's been working for you at the plate?
Yeah, I say for me, it's just sticking to my approach and doing my thing in the box. I've been working really hard in the off season as well as in the spring. So I think it's starting to come together, and I've just been really working on my vision at the plate as well, getting my foot down in time to see the ball, and it's really been beneficial for me.
When you talk about your approach, how would you describe what that is?
Yeah, I just like sitting fastball. I feel like when I get my foot down in time to get down for the fastball, it helps me to adjust to off-speed pitches easily. By getting it down and, trying to start my swing a little bit later, it helps me to lay off pitches that are out of the zone, that are not my pitches to swing at.
Sure. You have more walks than strikeouts so far this season, which is not something that you've done in your previous 2 years. Is that something that's important to you, and does it represent that that approach is working?
Yeah, I'd say so, because I'm, being a veteran player on this team now, I'm trying to see more pitches in the box, because I know that my abilities are really good, and it's hard for pitchers to get me out. So by trying to see more pitches, it allows me to walk more and strike out less.
Next question, Christian Mortensen.
What's going on, Brandon?
What's up?
Coach Johnson described how you had initially committed to play at USC, ended up coming to Arizona, of course. Can you just talk about that for a second, what that whole process was like?
Yeah, so early on in my career, when I was about 15, I had a lot of success with the USA baseball team and different things like that. So it really opened up, my different options to go to college. So originally I ended up choosing Southern California to play baseball there. And when I was a junior in high school, I ended up getting Tommy John surgery, and I also had a injury that happened with my ankle later that year. So, I was out for baseball for, a little bit over a year. So it took a toll on my body. I gained a little bit of weight and different things like that. So I think once USC found out, they decided to take away my scholarship. So I ended up calling up Coach Jay here after I graduated high school, actually. And he was gracious enough to let me walk on here and play here for him.
Do you kind of have a chip on your shoulder against USC for that, or do you more just kind of look at it as it happened and you've moved on from it?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I have a chip on my shoulder. I'm very blessed to be here. I love playing here under Coach Jay, and this is the best decision I've ever made in my life. And I don't regret anything. I think everything happens for a reason.
Thanks, bro.
Next question, Matt Moreno.
Coach mentioned your previous history as a pitcher. How much does that help you just at the plate and even when you're in the field to kind of maybe translate some of those things you learned on the mound to these other spots on the field?
Yeah, it helps me a lot. I pitched up until my freshman year here, so I kind of try to put my mindset, as Quinn said earlier, in the pitcher's head, what they would throw me and what count, different things like that. So I think it really helps me a lot in the box, in different counts. And then, I'd say that's the biggest thing for me.
Coach Johnson has sounded really excited about this challenge you guys have ahead of you this weekend, both on Sunday and again today. Other than just kind of getting away from Tucson and going on the road for the first time, what are you looking forward to about this challenge you guys have ahead of you?
I'm looking forward to competing with all my different teammates. I think we've really done a good job preparing, and we're starting to play well as a team together. So I'm really excited to see, how it goes against some really good competition.
Next question, Michael Lau.
How much has it helped you both offensively and defensively to just focus on one position instead of, being a pitcher / outfielder / first baseman?
I think a lot. I still practice a little bit in the outfield every now and then, but primarily focusing at first base has really helped me just to focus on, two different things, both first base and just hitting, different things like that. So I think not having all these different things going around in my head about different positions, when I'm going to play, where I'm going to play, it really helps me to be at ease.
Sure. There have been many sweet swinging, left-handed hitting first basemen over the years. Mark Grace was one of my favorite players back in the day. Is there a particular hitter or first baseman that you model your game after?
Yeah, I'd say Freddie Freeman. I think our swings resemble each other very well. He's a great defender and great teammate, great person as well. So I watch a lot of videos on him and try to emulate my game after him.
Is there anything in particular about his swing or his style at the plate that you like?
I just like how he takes tough at bats. I feel like he's a very tough out, and I feel like that's how it is for me too. His swing is kind of inside out. He shoots the gaps really well, and I feel like, that's what I do well in my game too.
Sure. One last thing for you. What's been the messaging from the coaches and the discussion among your teammates about doing all the right things on the road, making sure that everybody stays safe and just kind of does what they're supposed to do?
Yeah, it's been a big thing for us. We've been really good I'd say the past month without having any positive COVID tests. So just staying on the straight and narrow and sticking to the plan, staying in our rooms, not going to each other's rooms and hanging out. And ultimately it's a business trip when we go to Texas, and we're there to get a job done.
Next question, Christian Mortensen.
Just to go back to your defense for a second, you've made some pretty slick plays over there, particularly that I've noticed with your footwork. How comfortable are you over there, and just what can you say about it?
Yeah, I've been working really hard at first base, just early work and different things like that. Working on my, picks, ranging left and right with ground balls, and also my footwork, like you said. So I'm beginning to get really comfortable. It feels like my primary position over the outfield now, and I'm just there to help us win.
Thank you.
Are there any more questions for Brandon? Okay, thank you, everybody. That's all we have for this afternoon.
Thanks, guys.